Some people pass through your life so quickly you barely remember their face, but somehow they leave a weight behind that never really goes away. I didn't expect that to happen to me on an ordinary night behind the wheel, but it did, and years later, I still feel it. My name is Daniel, and I'm 38 years old. I've been a driver most of my adult life, and there's one passenger I still think about every night, even though I never learned their full story and they never learned mine. That night started like so many others. The city was quiet in that tired way it gets after midnight, when the streets feel emptied of ambition and everyone who's still awake seems to be carrying something heavy. I remember being irritated before the ride even began. I'd had a long shift, my back ached, and I was already doing the math in my head, wondering if the hours I was putting in were actually adding up to a life or just keeping me busy enough not to think too hard. The pickup location was a small apartment building I'd passed hundreds of times, nothing special. The passenger got in without a word, sat in the back seat, and gave me the destination in a soft voice. I noticed right away how tired they sounded. Not sleepy tired, but worn down, like someone who'd been holding themselves together all day and was finally letting the tension slip. For the first few minutes, we drove in silence. I didn't try to fill it. Driving teaches you when to talk and when to leave space alone. The road lights slid across the windshield and the engine hummed steadily, and I remember thinking about how strange it is that so many lives briefly overlap inside a car, just long enough to move from one place to another. About halfway through the ride, they spoke again. Not small talk, no comment about traffic or weather, just one sentence, said almost to themselves, "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing anymore." I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure if they were talking to me or just thinking out loud. Then they added, quieter this time, "Have you ever felt like you took a wrong turn years ago and now you're just driving around it?" Something about that hit me harder than it should have. Maybe because I'd asked myself the same question earlier that night, sitting alone in this same seat. I told them the truth. I said yes, more often than I liked to admit. They didn't cry. They didn't raise their voice. They just started talking, slowly, carefully, like each word cost them something. They talked about a relationship that had lasted too long, about staying because leaving felt like admitting failure. They talked about a job that paid the bills but hollowed them out piece by piece. They talked about how everyone around them thought they were doing fine, and how lonely it felt to be praised for a life that didn't feel like their own. I didn't interrupt. I kept my eyes on the road, but I was listening in a way I hadn't listened to anyone in a long time. Not to fix, not to advise, just to understand. At one point, they laughed softly and said, "I don't even know why I'm telling you this. You're just a driver." I remember answering without thinking. I said, "Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone who's only going to be with you for a few miles." That seemed to settle something between us. The rest of the ride passed in a quiet kind of honesty. No big revelations, no neat conclusions, just two people sharing the same small space, both aware that whatever was said would stay there when the door closed. When we arrived, they paused before getting out. They looked at me through the rearview mirror and said, "Thank you for listening. I think I needed to hear myself say it out loud." Then they stepped out, closed the door gently, and walked into the building without looking back. I sat there for a moment before pulling away. I didn't feel inspired or healed or suddenly clear about my own life. What I felt was unsettled, like a mirror had been held up when I wasn't expecting it. I finished my shift that night, drove home, went to sleep, and told myself I'd forget about the whole thing. But I didn't. Over the years, that passenger has followed me in small ways, in the quiet of traffic jams, in the late hours when the city feels honest, in the moments when I'm tempted to say I'm fine and move on. I think about how easy it was for them to name what wasn't working and how hard it still felt to change it. I realized something uncomfortable because of that ride. I realized how many people, myself included, are moving through life like passengers, hoping the route makes sense by the time we arrive. We wait for signs, for permission, for some dramatic moment that tells us it's time to turn around. But most of the time, nothing dramatic happens, just a quiet knowing we keep pushing aside. That night didn't change my life all at once. There was no big decision the next morning, but it planted a question that refused to leave me alone. What would happen if I stopped pretending the road I was on was the only one available? Since then, I've made small shifts. Not brave ones, not cinematic ones. I've learned to listen better, to myself and to others. I've learned that silence isn't empty. It's often full of things we're avoiding. And I've learned that sometimes the most meaningful conversations happen with people who are only passing through. I don't know what became of that passenger. I don't know if they stayed or left, if they chose differently or kept going as they were. But I know this. For a brief stretch of road, we were honest with each other in a way that felt rare and real, and that mattered more than I understood at the time. If you're listening to this and you feel like you've been circling the same questions for years, I won't tell you what to do. I'm still figuring it out myself. But I will say this. Pay attention to the quiet moments. Pay attention to the thoughts you only admit when you think no one is listening. Sometimes that's where the truth finally gets the space to speak. I'm 38 now, and I still drive. I still meet strangers every day, but I carry that night with me, not as a regret, but as a reminder. Some passengers don't stay long, but they can change how you see the road forever.